to the Bear Down Abroad podcast with me, and I'm back in my house in Gothenburg, and my God, do we have some guests for you today. He survived, he tells us. He made it back from Vegas in one piece. We've got the amazing Greg Braggs from CHGO Chicago. If you don't listen to that podcast, I don't know what you're doing. If you don't know who Greg Braggs is, you're not a Chicago Bears fan. We're going to talk everything. Talk about the Raiders. We're going to talk about the Washington game. We're going to talk about Tariq Stevenson. We're going to talk about a few other things. Also, what Braggs really thinks about international fans. But again, you don't want to be listening to me. Tony, let's hit it.
Welcome back to the Bear Down Abroad podcast. We are delighted to be back. We've had a few kind of down days over the last few days, given us a bye week. But one man who hasn't had any down days in the last week, as you can see from his exploits on social media, is our man tonight, the guest from CHGO, Greg Braggs. Greg, first and foremost, welcome along the show. How was Vegas, man? And will you be allowed back in again?
Yeah, no, I'm sure they would be more than welcome to have me back after the money I spent in Las Vegas. They have no problem taking anyone's money, and they certainly took mine. But no, it was amazing. Obviously, it was started out as a Bears trip, ended as a spelunking trip of golfing and restaurants and stadium swim and everything else in between. So, took advantage of the bye week, but, the Bears doing what they did last week really made the whole thing what it was. And it was just an unreal scene being in Vegas and half of the city of Chicago there and everyone taking over Allegiant Stadium. It was a great moment. I don't get to go to too many games anymore. And, I obviously, can empathize with guys like you who don't get to go to any games, right? And so like, for me, growing up in Northwest Indiana and Chicagoland area, I typically go to every home game. And now that I do what I do, and I'm very grateful for it, I don't get to be in the stands as much. So it's the one thing for me that can hurt at times, to miss out on those moments when Luther Burden has a 80-yard touchdown and you see the crowd go wild at Soldier. You want to be there for those moments. That's what you live for as a fan. So maybe this is the only game I go to all year where they took down the Raiders, but to be at that game when they blocked that field goal was a special moment for all of us as Bears fans, and certainly everyone that was in that stadium that day, because it was just the house, just the roof blew off that house. It was unreal.
Well, if it's any consolation, I was watching it at 4 a.m. And I had my poor unfortunate girlfriend lying beside me, so I'm cheering inwardly as the punt was blocked. So there was a different level of emotions that I had to show before she beat me if I decided to do anything else. From our perspective, what you've done in your career to date, and what you've gone from the successful social media perspective that you started out with, and the kind of the Bears fan working within CHGO, getting to the point now where you're going to Bears games and seeing that emotion. Does it still feel the same for you? Do you still feel that connection as a supporter, or do you have to also kind of understand where you sit from a journalistic perspective and from your career perspective?
No, I mean, I don't. At this point, it's still the fan side of me hasn't left at all. I still live and breathe this team. I'm physically ill when they don't win. Those first 2 weeks of the season, I was, you couldn't approach me. Like even the guys at the studio, like, Carm's trying to joke around with me, and you really just, I could not do it. That's how upset I was. And it emotionally affects me on a level like every fan, like it always has my whole life. And so that part hasn't really left. Maybe it will one day if my role changes within the media. But at this point, my role here at CHGO Sports is just to keep doing what I do. And that's be a passionate fan. And sure, there's there's some blurred lines there now because I have to analyze the game. We have to break down. We do shows. I do get to go to the combine and the Super Bowl as, credentialed media. And I try to carry myself a different way when I'm at those events. But when I'm at the game or we're here at the studio, I stay true to who I am. And I'm kind of hoping I'll never have to change that. I would say the biggest difference now in what I do is you learn a little, the more you're in the industry and the more people you talk to, whether it's within the organization or people around it, you kind of learn how the food's made a little different, and that's the biggest difference is you learn how the steak is cooked. And so when you're a fan that doesn't get to be privy to maybe as many conversations that are going on behind the scenes, you can kind of rationalize different things and kind of come up with your rationalization or your conspiracy theory of why things go in a certain way that might make sense to you. But then once you get in it, there are things you learn that are factual that can't always be shared on the air, but do change your perception of the team and how you analyze the game. And so, like, for me, that has been a tough balance. There's been times where people tell me things and I'm sitting there like, I don't want to know. Don't tell me, because it kind of takes something from me a little bit. It takes a little bit out of what I've made the joke before, like, hey, my job is to yell ignorant shit into the mic. Like, I'm not, quit telling me this stuff that's going to make me more informed. Like, I want to, there's a balance there. And I think, some of what we do now is become an industry in a competition of always being right and who's the smartest. And I don't always want to be in that competition. I just want to be passionate and care. And, I don't want to sound like an idiot at all times, but at the same time, like, we don't have to always outsmart each other. This is sports, it's supposed to be fun, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that with the competitiveness, whether it's just a competitiveness as a fan or competitiveness within the media and how you break down the team. So there's a balance. It's not an easy needle to thread, in my position of what I try to do, but hey, I'm going to do it the best I can.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, man. And I think you hit the nail on the head there about not losing, that fan side of things, because, people have got their jobs, fair enough, they're journalists or whatever, right? But like, for example, about a year ago, myself and one of the guys on the other show we used to be on, we got the opportunity to go down to a London game. We got our media credentials. I turned up with my Caleb Williams Bears jersey on. I'm in the bit, sitting watching the little television, and I've got my free Diet Coke and all this kind of stuff. And it's brilliant. And then the guy reminds you, please remember not to celebrate when anyone scores. And you're just like, hold on a fucking minute. Like, what's happening here? Do you know what I mean? So it is it's like a kind of reality train that sort of just hits you like, this is a different thing from just being in the stands and just supporting the team. You're there, and it's kind of weird. And you'll have been in the situation obviously a lot more than either of us have, but it's got to be weird trying to kind of get used to that transition and trying to hold yourself back. But it's great though that you've got multiple different ways of doing it now. So fair enough, when you go to these games or the combine or whatever, you've got to do it in a certain way, but at the same time keeping yourself true by having the podcast there. Or whatever it else is that you're doing, sort of thing. So for you, I know you've sort of touched on it a little bit, but how difficult is it though? Like, because I find it really difficult, right? But you turn up to these games and you can't be the fan that you want to be sometimes, because you're not sitting in that same seat with Joe Blogs or whatever sort of thing. Like, how difficult is that for you when you are in that situation, whether it be a game, whether it be a combine or whatever it is, sort of thing?
Well, I like to attack any challenge. So when we go to the combine, and I know we're speaking with Ryan Poles or Ben Johnson that day, like the other media guys, they've been doing this a long time. Well, I make sure I wear a suit when I go there. I make sure like I'm walking in with a different impression that maybe some have of me. But when it's the game, I'm going to have a different approach. And, there's a pro and con to what I do in terms of how when we do these post game shows, like after week one, when the game ended, I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated. And, if you go back and watch that first post game show against the Vikings, I didn't really have a great performance in that show. Because I was so mortified about what happened that I didn't really do my job as well as I could have. And so, like, that's the other end of the spectrum is like, yes, you're going to be passionate, and I think people will feel that and vibe that with you. But at the same time, still have a job to do. We have a 2-hour post-game show we got to do. We have, our sponsors depend on us to make sure we put on a good show. And so, I think it's about the balance, of trying to make sure you're doing right by all parties. I always want to do right by the guys I work with who've been in this industry as media for a long time, do right by our sponsors who have an expectation of how we need to perform, and do right by the fans, first and foremost over it all. So there's a lot of gravity to all that stuff, but I like the challenge. I take it on head on.
Yeah, first of all, you're brilliant at what you do. That's call a spade a spade. You're brilliant at what you do. Your injection into CHGO has been sensational. So give yourself a lot of credit for that. Second of all, let's move on to the thing we actually want to talk about. Let's talk a bit about the Bears and where we are and how positive it is after the Raiders game.
Hold on, I thought you were going to bring up the Michael Jackson impersonator. I thought that's what we wanted to talk about. Hold on, are we talking about the Bears? Right, we'll come back to Michael Jackson.
That's the last question we're going to ask him. Now, from the Bears' perspective, I think it's mad. Like after the Lions game, where devastation hit, and we started questioning everybody and everything, and Dennis Allen's defense, and we're looking at everything from Caleb, and we're looking at conversations around our overall defense and Montez Sweat and everything, to now going into the bye, and that blocked punt was so important that it's now got a little bit of positivity. And we were saying it on the show last week, Chicago Bears are the kind of team that positivity breeds everything. So in the city or amongst the fan base around the world, it's that positivity feel that's going into it. So we're heading into the Washington game, and it's not a free game, but it's very much a much more positive outlook on it. So what's your take now as we head into like the second section of our season? That we're 2-2, a lot more positive stuff on what we're seeing, and the likes of Tariq Stevenson's making plays and Byard's making plays, guys who aren't necessarily high on the fans' support base over the first 2 weeks of the season. Are you seeing this positivity feel that we head into Washington with all that real kind of movement towards that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're seeing the momentum build, but more importantly, I think you're seeing a culture being built. When they beat the Cowboys, all of a sudden we're hearing the slogan from Ben Johnson, good, better, best. Yeah. We didn't know that was going to be a rally cry. Then they beat the Raiders. He's saying it again. Well, you keep stacking these kind of wins that are really going to make a team come together. Now, all of a sudden, it becomes your war cry. It's not just a rally cry. And these guys are, putting the war paint on, thinking about that motto going into every game. And that's a powerful thing, not just for this year, but for years to come. So these are important moments that they're having right now. And you got to give this team a lot of credit for pulling themselves off the mat after losing the way they did to the Lions and even the Vikings game as well. This team's been through a lot in the last 2 years since Caleb Williams' arrival. And, you see a 10-game losing streak and coaches get jettisoned halfway through the year. And so they need something to believe in. And this team, could have been 1-3 right now. The going into a Monday Night Football game right now, 1-3 versus an opportunity to be 3-2, that's a big difference. And so you have an opportunity here coming up on Monday to take this culture and really, really push it. If you looked at Drake May's coming out party last night against the Bills, they're believing over there. They're 3-2. They just took down a big team on the road. Bo Nix, he was able to make the playoffs. They beat the Eagles on the road. And Jaden Daniels, obviously did everything he did last year. They win a big game against the Chargers on the road after him coming off an injury. So this is an opportunity here for Caleb Williams to have that moment on the national stage. And honestly, it's kind of a perfect storm, right? When you consider how they lost to this team last year. It's on Monday Night Football. It's Caleb Williams' hometown. It's an opportunity for Tyreek Stevenson to redeem himself. Talk about pulling yourself off the mat. The guy in the first 2 games of this season, it was 158.3 quarterback rate. And when throwing at Tyreek Stevenson, he goes and makes the biggest play of the game against the Cowboys, ripping the ball out, and then has a Superman interception against the Raiders. So to me, there's a lot of things in the balance for the Bears here in terms of positive momentum and culture being built. But overall, I think my biggest thing that I'm going to hold to here for a little while we still try to figure out what this team is as long as they continue to make incremental improvement each week, like I want them to win 9 games. I want them to make the playoffs. But ultimately, if the injury, hopefully we get healthier here coming up, against this Washington game. But if injuries derail that or things don't go how we wanted, I'll be able to accept that if this team continues to make the incremental improvement and development that we've seen over these first 4 weeks, specifically with Caleb Williams in this offense. And I don't mean to, make it seem like the rest of the team doesn't matter because they do. But at the same time, it does matter what Ben Johnson gets out of Caleb Williams in this offense. And so far through 4 weeks, you can see there's a light at the end of the tunnel with what they are building here. And maybe there's going to be some tweaks to this roster, some additions that need to be made, and some, to have more legitimacy and a chance to win a Super Bowl. But at this point, you're seeing how good this coaching staff is, and you're seeing how much Caleb Williams has invested his time and is implementing it on the field.
Yeah, I think realistically coming into the season, you get to week 4. I know I would have taken a 2-2 record at this point at the start of the year, considering the kind of teams you're going up against. Now, there was questions over all the teams in questions. There were questions over the Minnesota Vikings. Does JJ McCarthy become the quarterback that they hope he's going to become? What are the Lions going to be like when they lose their defensive and offensive coordinators? The Dallas Cowboys just traded away their best player on defense. So, there was a lot of questions about those teams coming into it. And the teams that are experienced, the teams that have got a pedigree of winning, have turned around and answered those questions relatively well so far. And I think that's something that the Bears hadn't had to this point, is that pedigree of pulling yourself out of situations where it looks like it's a definite loss and you can turn that into a win. Whereas before, we were taking almost definite wins and turning them into losses. So I think you have to have that sort of transition period. You have to have that period to grow as a team. And I think one of the really kind of big parts of that has been the transition on the offense and the transition with the coaches as well. What are your sort of biggest takeaways from what you've seen and heard in terms of what's different about this team from the coaching point of view to what we've seen with Matt Eberflus and what we've seen with Matt Nagy and what we've seen with all those other guys that have come over the last back to Lovie Smith, basically. What is the biggest takeaway difference between them and what Ben Johnson is doing and how he's taken his players to the next level to win games that you're inevitably looking like you're going to lose and not doing it the other way around?
Well, I'd say it's 2 words. It's preparedness and accountability. Those are the 2 things that were missing from last year's team. You're talking about a team last year that didn't score a touchdown on any opening drive all of last year. And they did immediately in their first 2 weeks of this season. You're talking about a team that's already scored more points in their first quarter this year than they did all of last season. And that speaks to preparation, which should make Bears fans excited about how this team comes out of the bye, because they haven't been good out of the bye the last 3 or 4 years. But if you look at the evidence and the breadcrumbs of how this team has been prepared so far, they've done a really good job of being prepared. And you even saw it in the Cowboys game on the flea flicker. They knew something on tape from the Cowboys secondary that they were going to be susceptible to a play like that. You saw it in week 4 against the Raiders on the blocked field goal. They saw something on tape with the long snapper and the way he held the ball that was a tell on how they could block that field goal. That's the preparation standpoint. Now, if you look at the accountability and you see the way, start with Caleb Williams on the way he has prepared himself each week to be ready for these games, how much calmer he looks in the pocket, how much calmer he looks behind center pre-snap, how much calmer he looks in the huddle, relaying the play. Delayed games were a big problem in training camp. Ben Johnson comes out and says after Family Fest, we're not going to win a lot of games playing like this. He didn't mix words. They've come into this regular season, and they've done a good job so far of trying to clean those things up. It hasn't been perfect, but then you look at some of the more hard-line decisions you have to make. Imagine one of the best players in football wrecking your game in Max Crosby, and your coach is like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bench my veteran left tackle and bring in my basically rookie right tackle out of Canada, the Canadian Eagle, and move him over to left and bring a rookie right tackle in, on the right side in Ozzie Trapillo. And that's the adjustment I'm going to make to a veteran MVP level player in Max Crosby wrecking your game. But at this point, Ben Johnson said, no, enough's enough. Braxton, we've given you 3 weeks to get this right. You haven't. And so now we're going to make a change right here, right now. We're not going to wait until the bye week to reassess. How many coaches would have done that and just called that game a wash, and said, you know what, we're gonna reassess here in the bye week and we're going to make a change. No, he said, we're making a change right now. And that to me is the type of accountability that this coaching staff has implemented to this team. And so I think you see that kind of translating with the rest of the players kind of following suit.
Yeah, but I also think you hit the nail on the head. It's not just accountability; the players know it as well. So that creates that level of understanding what's coming next if I don't perform. And also, what I love about him is he calls himself out. He doesn't just blame the players, or it's not what we had last year with the love in and everyone's great and loads of cool nicknames and all that bullshit. What you actually have is a guy who's willing to call himself out, willing to call out his coaches, and willing to not just call out his players, because that was a little bit of a worry after the Lions game. A little bit of a worry, and then he's elevated himself and got better in the next 2 games where he's like, yeah, as you said, Braxton goes out, Braxton's not performing, bye-bye. Same, and I'm sure Tariq Stevenson was told the same thing after the Lions game. This is your opportunity. You don't perform, you're gone. Anyway, we've taken up loads of your time. I want to get one last one before we go, because the vast majority of the people that watch this are outside the Chicago Bears area. And Chicago, you guys have lovely times to watch football games at 12 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, but you also got the experience in London, what it was like for the passionate level of Bears fans outside of Chicago. As someone who is Chicago born and bred, Bears in your heart and your soul, what is it like for you as a Bears fan to see the level of importance that the Chicago Bears is outside of Chicago and America?
Well, it's certainly thrilling. I mean, I had the opportunity to go to the Bears-Raiders London game in 2019. And then obviously we went to Bears, in London last year when they took on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so you got to really see the global effect that Chicago has had on so many people. And I say Chicago because each person that I talk to and ask, like, well, how did you become a Bears fan? A lot of times the majority of it was 2 answers, and that was the 85 Bears. Yeah, the 85 Bears, and my parent, either they or their parents introduced them from that, or Michael Jordan. And I relate to that in a big way because I was born in 1985, the year Michael Jordan was drafted by the Bulls and the year the Bears won the Super Bowl. I was 2 months old when the Bears won the Super Bowl. So I was literally brought into this world when Chicago sports was at its craziest, or about to be at the very least. So to hear people's story about that globally, that's how they found Chicago, and not just their love for each team, the Bears, the Bulls, whatever, but also the city itself. And so that part is really cool to me, to see the passion that you guys have and everybody else. We've had so many people in our chats from different parts of the country and the world that watch the game at 3 a.m. like you guys were saying. Like that's, I mean, when we were in Vegas, there was a Ireland game the Vikings played, and so it started at 6 a.m. Luckily I had to get up that early to set up the set that we were going to do for the pregame show. But hey, there's a game on, so like that was kind of cool. But most people aren't getting up that early, even though at Vegas it seems like nobody sleeps. But regardless, you kind of see what the different level of commitment to get up that early. Because like I'm a tailgating guy. Like the game doesn't start until I've tailgated for 5 hours and I've gotten some drinks in me and some food in me. So I can't imagine like setting my alarm to wake up for kickoff and then getting into game mode. Like to me, there's a riling up period that has to take place. That's why I love primetime games, because I love the build up to kickoff. So to me, like to not be able to have that build up, like I'm going to set my alarm for 3:30 a.m. because the kickoff's at 4. Like that's got to be that's a different level of commitment. That's a different way of watching the game for sure.
Well, imagine being 35-0 down at halftime, and it's 3 a.m. in the morning, and you say, do you know what? I'm going to stay up for the third quarter just because I can. Greg, thank you so much for coming on, man. We really, really do appreciate your time and jumping on. I know how busy you are, and I'm not gonna say to you where can people follow you, because we all know where to go. Make sure you go on to CHGO Bears. Make sure you follow Greg. If you're not following Greg, you're not a real Bears fan. Really, really appreciate your time, man. We really, really do. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime. I mean, obviously, everybody's so busy this time of year with the football schedule, but reach out anytime, and I'm happy to jump on whenever you guys need me.
Briggs, just really quickly before you go, man,
Sure.
Can I just get your prediction for the game on Monday night? What wagering is going to go?
Yeah, I don't mean to big time you. I haven't really even gotten there yet. I know we're going to put ours out here at the end of the week, but I picked them to win every week so far this year. So maybe we'll just keep that running. But we'll see. I honestly, I can see it going either way, but my heartstrings are going to pull it a Bears win. That's for sure.
Nice, man.
Stay safe, my man.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Have a good one.
You guys. Take care.
Stay safe.
Bear down.
Cheers.
Bear down, brother. That was cool.
It was cool, man. And it wasn't giving away anything there at the end in terms of the score.
That's a proper guy who's been injected into the journalistic charm. He's been told he can't give a score away. I'm sure.
That's for the diehards only. That's
for diehards only, my man. That's only for diehards only. So yeah, make sure you go over to CHGO Bears. It's a great show. He's brilliant on it. So really, really appreciate his time. Anyway, we've got over 600 people in the chat. Stay around. It's a bit of fun. We're going to talk about a bit of Bears, what our take on where the season is for the first 4 weeks, what we're thinking around the Commanders game. We're still here for another half an hour, so make sure you jump on. So with that in mind, Tony, what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look back at the first 4 games. And what I'm going to ask you straight up, and we haven't talked about these yet, give me your offensive player of the first 4 games and defensive player of the first 4 games.
Oh, right, okay. You can tell that we don't set the schedule out with these quick questions. We just put them out of the year. Better. It's like just being at your pal's house and having a conversation. So, best offensive player. I mean, I've actually ran out. I'll need to get another one. Best offensive player. I mean, it's hard to see past Caleb Williams, to be honest with you, because that guy has made such tremendous improvements from last year. And that's not to say that last year he was bad. Last year he was a rookie. This year he's a guy with the third offensive coordinator, learning another playbook. But I think he's been there's been bits and bobs that have happened that have not been great. But I think generally speaking, he's been really good. He's put his team in a position to win games. He's in clutch moments. He's coming out on top. When you talk about 2-minute drives and things like that, and red zone accuracy and all that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff that matters. And I think the decision making is getting there. There's been some missed throws, absolutely. There's been some errant throws, but again, that all comes with the sort of trials and tribulations of learning a new offense and having new guys around about you. I think another shout out just on the offense as well for me would be Rome Odunze, because
You can't claim two.
Yeah, well, I'm doing it. Because I can. You can. The thing is, right, if I'd have picked someone else other than Caleb, then it'd just have been the one. But for me, those two guys are like they're a combo. Do you know what I mean? Like Caleb and Rome, right from day one, right from the draft, right from the actual night that they were drafted, they had that connection. You've seen that excitement from Caleb Williams when they took Rome Odunze, and it's just continued since then. They've now got that on the field as well. He's the go-to guy. He's effectively, from all intents and purposes, the number one receiver on the team. I don't know what's happening with DJ Moore. Like, he's also there, but Rome has been the guy so far. So I think when you mention Caleb, you have to mention Rome, because the two of them go hand in hand. In terms of defense, I would probably. It's more of a difficult one for the defense, because I sort of look at that defensive line and I think, we're certainly not there yet. You look at the defensive back situation, and there's still a lot of questions here, although it started in the last couple of weeks to kind of kick on a little bit. But for me, I'm going to go with Noah Sewell. I think that's a guy that's come in. He's taken advantage of someone being down injured, and he's been the next man up. And he's come in, he's played that middle linebacker role superbly. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. The only error that I can even think of, and that's me really being harsh, was that first receiving touchdown for Ashton Genty in the Raiders game, where you could say that he never wrapped up enough. But then I've also heard other people talking about Genty, and he's a difficult guy to get wrapped up. Although I'm pretty sure he's got fucking goose fat on his body when he's running through. But I mean, Noah Sewell's been excellent. And if you think of it, where we took him in the draft, came from that point of, being a player that, in the year before he was drafted, there was a lot of talk about him being one of the first round picks, and it sort of dropped off. And then he was taken in what the 4th, 5th round for us, sort of thing. It made a lot of sense to take him because of the pedigree that he's got there, and the clear talent. And it's taken a year or so to get going, and that's fine. That's what you should have with your 5th, 6th, 7th rounders. There should be guys that eventually get going, and he's been one of them. So I think that's got to be one of the biggest success stories for that Chicago Bears defense this season. But for you, man, and I apologize for taking 2 of the offense, but it had to happen for the reasons.
Of course you did. First of all, we still have over 600 people who are watching away. So jump over to YouTube if you can and get your comments in. Don't forget to like the show and like the episode and follow the show itself so we can start growing this. So yeah, for me, I was actually going to go the other way to you. I was going to go Rome Odunze first and then Caleb second. Not because Caleb's been bad. I just think Rome has been sensational. And it's even allowed conversations around DJ Moore. But if you've taken those two, the one that excites me the most is Luther Burden, because I just think that there is a chance Luther Burden might even be better than Rome if he keeps going the way he is, just electricity in his hands. And you just want to see the ball in his hands. And there was a play, I think it was against the Cowboys, where he did a wraparound, and it just, anyone else on our team, and I would include Rome in this, gets knocked behind the line of scrimmage, but somehow he weaves a way through, gets a couple of yards, and gets him that first down. And I'm just so excited at what I'm seeing with Luther Burden, and it continues to grow into this offense and really takes that step forward. He's showing that he's actually a first-round pick that was taken in the second, and that's something that really excites me outside the 2 you mentioned. The one in defense, Noah Sewell was going to be my pick as well, if I'm honest. But I think Byard is definitely, Byard against the Raiders was Max Crosby-esque. Not just the 2 interceptions. No one really talks about the play before the block punt or block field goal, where he makes an absolute smash on Genty at the line of scrimmage, keeps it down, pushes it into 4th down, which gives us the opportunity for the block field goal. And what's even better about that play is, even if they got the field goal, that play allowed us another 30, 40 seconds on the clock with 3 timeouts to maybe go and steal it ourselves. So Byard for me has been brilliant. I think Edmonds has been decent. He's definitely been decent with his interceptions, but he's been decent in a physical presence, especially with the loss of his buddy Edwards. We could get a lot more out of our defensive line. I agree. We definitely could get a lot more out of our edges. But I think our backfield, gotta call a spade a spade. Tariq Stevenson has turned me around in week 3 and week 4. I think after week 2, I was really worried because I know Jalen Johnson. and he's almost seemed to enjoy the fact that Jalen's not there. He seems to enjoy the fact that he's now the cornerback one, and he's trying to make himself into a lockdown corner, and he's going back to his nemesis in Washington. He's going back to that field, that moment where it all went sour. So people forget that he was picked and forget the talent the kid has. So I'm delighted for him personally. And there was a great interview, I think, online I saw today as well about him talking about the impact of that game and the impact of the coaching moves and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely been positives on this team, and there's been a lot of movement in the right direction. I think the coaches have been very good, how they handled after the Lions game. So many positives as we head into Washington. And I'm of the belief this Monday Night Football game is a free shot. I know there's not many free shots in the NFL, but this is a free shot because had we got in 1-3, losing that, we couldn't have lost that game. But now we're going in 2-2. It's an attack we can have at a game. We can give it a good go. I know the bookies have them down at 4.5 for Washington. So it's and that's fair. I think Washington look like on paper a better team, but I like our chances.
Yeah, I mean, and that interview you're talking about, I think it was Kevin Byard. I don't know if he has like a show or whatever, but anyway, someone shared it on Twitter earlier on. And if you haven't seen it, go watch the interview with Tyreek Stevenson, where he talks about that Hail Mary play in Washington last season. And he talks about how much of a learning curve it was. And an opportunity for him to bounce back and to grow. And for me, I was watching it and I thought, you know what, fair play, man. Like you've owned it. It's your mistake, but you're using that to motivate you to get better. At the end of the day, everybody makes mistakes. Everyone does stupid shit. But if you're able to turn it around, then turn it around. And certainly in the game against the Raiders and the Cowboys game, Stevenson's been playing out his skin, man. He's been absolutely phenomenal. So for me, you know, if we have this conversation, say the bye week's week 8, you know, instead of week 5, you know, we have a different conversation at that point about who maybe the best player on the defensive side of the ball is. And maybe it is Stevenson, because at the end of the day, really from now until the end of the regular season, he is cornerback 1. Jalen Johnson is gone for an undetermined amount of time. We don't know when he's going to be back. Should he sign someone else to come in to play in his place? Probably. Will that happen? I don't know. But either way, if Stevenson can up his game and play at that level that we know he can, then you know it certainly makes up for that. Guys, remember to like the show and follow us on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We really appreciate you sticking around and listening to us drone on about your and I favorite football team. So that's what we're all here for. We're here to talk Bears because we love the Bears. In terms of the season thus far, I wanted to ask you a question in terms of the free agents that the Bears have signed now. I don't want to put too much on the rookies, the draft picks just now. I think it's not fair to evaluate those guys. First time in the league, a lot of them haven't really played either. So we'll come back to that at the end of the year. But certainly from the guys that have come in the 2025 free agent period, what for you, if I could ask you to pick 3 guys, one guy who's made a big impact for you, a significant impact, one guy who's been okay, still a lot to go there, and one guy that's been disappointing, who would those 3 guys be for you at this point?
It's a good question. I think Tooney has definitely been just your solid guy that we expected him to be in that offensive line. I know we haven't created many holes, but I think he's been good in the same way that you go, would be Dalton. Just not like he's not blowing the houses down, but he's not being awful. On the side of being like poor, I mean, it's a harsh on Dio because he had a good first game, but for what we're spending, I think Dio gets it purely because he's connected with Montez Sweat and that whole lack of pressure on the quarterback and what that results in. I think that would be the way, the order which I would do it, if I'm honest. I just think we're getting from Dalton what we expected to get. It's 6.5, 7 out of 10 every week. It's solidity. It's not a like turnstile, which you've been seeing at center for the last 3 or 4 years, where Jesus, you see the snap and you're praying that he knows what he's doing. There's a lot more development, I think, on that side of the football. As I said, here he's just stud. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, I'd say, in the future when he did at Kansas, and hopefully what he does here. But it's just that way. Dio, look, again, he had a great first game. I know he was going up against a second stringer, but he had a great first game. We haven't seen that from him since. But I think he is being impacted by the fact of that none of our edges are like the money he's been given, not his fault per se. Money he's been given, the money Montez has been given. And again, Montez, he's getting pressures, he is getting a sack, he's doing all those kind of things, but it's not to the value of which both of those, the amount of, I think I heard somewhere, might even be in CHGO, I think they said something like 20% of our cap or 25% of our cap is going against the edges. Well, we're not getting the return from that. So unfortunately, Dio falls into that for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I would probably agree with your picks there as well. I think Joe Tooney's the obvious standout free agent, or including trades in this, but he signed a new contract, so I think he's been excellent so far. Still a lot more to come from him. I think they're still gelling on that offensive line for sure, so it'll be interesting to see how that progresses and evolves over the next few weeks. I think Dolman has been middle of the road. Pass protection's been really, really poor for me. The running game maybe a little bit better, but the running game in general for the Bears is a big concern. We'll come on to that shortly as well. But for me, in terms of another guy that's really stood out on the team, I've got to go with Zacchaeus, the wide receiver. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, he's been brought in to be a wide receiver 3, right? He is a wide receiver 3. He's not a 1. He's not a 2. He's coming in. He's performing at that role how you'd expect him to perform at that role. I think he's providing a valuable outlet at the moment. He's becoming a reliable go-to guy. Hasn't any drops or anything like that this season. And I think at this point in time, and this is all, there's a case thing sort of on projection a little bit as well, because obviously it's only been 4 games statistically. There's not a lot there, but projection, I mean, if it continues along this line, he's going to be producing at the same level as he did last year with Washington. You're 500-600 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns or whatever. But I think he'll take that next step this year. I think he's outperforming in receiving yards, certainly kind of any of the tight ends that are there just now. So I think as the offense grows, as they find ways to use people, he's going to be a guy that becomes more and more critical for this team in terms of his reliability. In terms of sort of middle of the road person, I'm going to see Grady Jarrett here. Now, Jarrett is obviously, it's a lot of money they paid to him, $43 million or something like that. He's come in though week 1 again, same as Dio. He was pretty decent in week 1. He then picked up that knee injury though, which has then sort of impacted them in week 2 and week 3, and then obviously he didn't play last week. So I think, if he hadn't had that knee injury, you probably see a bit more production at that point. You probably see the run defense be a little bit better than it has been. And as I say, defensively, we're just better. I think if he overcomes that injury, we've got the bye week now. Next Monday, I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully he plays. But if he does play, it has to be because he's 100% fit. It can't be just because he's nearly there. I'm willing to wait another couple of weeks for Grady Jarrett to be, up at cruising altitude as opposed to just there and no more. I think when he gets going, it'll be good. But end of the day, in terms of a free agent signing and what we've got back from him in the first 4 games, it's middle of the road. In terms of guys that are just not looking great, for me, the biggest standout for there is Jonah Jackson, the right guard. For me, when they signed Jackson, when they traded for him at first, it was done the day before the Tooney trade, I'm pretty sure. I wasn't overly excited about it, right? And I thought, this is another patchwork job from Ryan Poles. He's going to just take some veteran guys and trade deals from around the league, like a sort of Ryan Bates sort of thing. Like, remember when Ryan Bates was the be-all and end-all, and he was going to come in and save the offensive line, that kind of thing. But anyway, so he's come in, paid him a lot of money as well in this contract extension. But for me, he's just not doing what he should be doing. He's given up something like 8 pressures, ton of penalties as well, which isn't great. If you believe in PFF scores, he's got a pass blocking grade of 54.2, running block of 56. And his overall ranking is currently 71st out of 102 qualifying guards in the league. So, for me, that's pretty poor. Again, for the money that you've given him, it's not good enough. For a 6th-round pick, it's fine, but it's the money that you're paying him on top of that sort of thing. So he needs to bounce back. Thankfully for him, he's got some good guys on that offensive line with him, and he's got Ben Johnson, who we know can scheme to the strengths of the players that he has. He's got experience with Ben Johnson from being in Detroit for a couple of seasons with him as well. So, it's early in the season. There's still nothing's written yet, So, but for me, that would be a disappointing performance so far in terms of free agents. I've waffled on a wee bit here, and I do apologise, but I did want to ask you though, and I mentioned it slightly in that rant there. The running game, so I can understand why the Commanders are 4.5 point favourites in the game, because for the Bears, unless we get that running game going, we're one-dimensional and we're relying on throwing the ball a lot. Where is that going to get going? What are your thoughts on the running game so far?
Yeah, see, it's interesting. It was really interesting is Ben Johnson's comments where he almost absolved DeAndre Swift of blame and put it on himself and put it on the scheme that we're doing where we just aren't creating holes. I think that's a fair one. I think we've come against teams that, look, we came against the Vikings who won, 13, 14 games last year. We came against the Lions who are one of the favourites for the Super Bowl and have shown that in the last 3-4 weeks. And then we came up against the Cowboys team, okay, were poor, but had the week before where they got ran over. And then we came up against Max Crosby, who decided to have a Max Crosby game. So I think we're going to see it more over the next, after Washington, we've got a relatively easy couple of 3 or 4 games where easier games. Should be easier.
I didn't like that.
easier games
easier,
in comparison to the Vikings and the Lions, because our division is pretty insane. So I think that's where we're going to judge them. I think we're going to judge them around week 7, week 8. I have regularly said I don't think DeAndre Swift's game is running up the guts. I think you've got in not just Roschon Johnson, but in our rookie 7th-round pick that we have there, Guy Monungai, that could do that up the good stuff and let Swift do much more on the outside. Because once Swift gets in space, he is gone. He creates what should be a 5 or 10 yard turns into a 40, 50 yard play. And he's shown that regularly in Chicago. The problem he seems to have is finding the right holes and going through the right holes. Now, unfortunately for him in the first 4 games, there's just been no holes created. So he gets stuffed quite a lot. I don't know what's going on with Roschon Johnson, because what we saw with Roschon Johnson last year was that he could do what I thought Ben Johnson would want him to do, which is just go straight. So the question then goes, I think you've got a very fair point around Jackson. You've got a very fair point even around Dalton as well about helping to create that. And then it comes from the strain that's coming maybe from the edges of Braxton Jones as well. You don't know. I think that's going to come. I think teams are going to be a lot more wary of us passing the football because Caleb has started to make some really big plays. So maybe that opens up a little bit more opportunity for our running game. In saying that, we still had the 19 play drive. 11 of that was the run game. So while I accept people are saying the run game isn't great, that was one of the most energetic plays of the season by any team. I don't think anyone's done 19 drives on a touchdown, 11 of which were runs. So there is an opportunity there. It is there. The skill set's there. The players are there. The scheme is there. The coaches is there. What you need now is to try and get more regularity with it. And I think we badly missed more tight end sets because that also opens up holes, that creates mismatches. That means teams have to respect the players that we have out there. And I think that's important to see with what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to grow the actual game itself. So I think it's interesting what it's going to be like. We're going up against a very, very good defensive line in Washington. So it's going to test us for sure. But I don't want us to force the run game because we have to. I think we win what's in front of us. But it's a collective thing. it's a collective issue, and it's not just it's this guy's. Like you see it on Twitter all the time, or amongst Bears fans. Oh, DeAndre Swift is shit. It's not fair sometimes when you look at either the All-22 or when you actually watch the game. In some scenarios, he makes the wrong call. Of course he does, but he's been hampered a little bit by what's in front of him. What do you think?
Yeah, no, much of what you said, I would definitely agree with. I think, continuing to run DeAndre Swift up the gut just seems like counterproductive. It's not working. So what does it say is like, doing the same thing over and over and over and over again is like a sign of madness or whatever it is, like it wasn't working. And I don't know whether or not that was part of the plan, like run up the gut, and then you'll think that that's our game plan, and then we'll then do some sort of stuff on the outside as well. But I would have liked to have seen Kyle Monangai get involved a lot more. I think in that last game he was averaging something like 5 yards per carry. He didn't have a lot of carries though, and then you compare that with Swift, who was like 3.5 yards or something like that, but obviously carried the ball a lot more. So maybe Monangai is just a guy that needs more opportunity. I think that'll come. Man, I think at the end of the day, he's still a 7th round pick, and they're still sort of building that situation. Ben Johnson said that he has confidence in him, which is always great to hear your head coach saying that about a 7th round rookie. And I think it will come. I mean, at the end of the day, we're 4 games into it. We've got a lot to go. I think his role will evolve. Ben Johnson also said that come December time, that's when we're going to be looking more like the offense that we want to be. And maybe part of that is just trying to get everything where it needs to be and assignments and all that kind of stuff. But you're right, it's a multiple thing. It's not just on Swift or Monangai. It's on the offensive line. It's on the tight ends that are blocking. It's on the coach. Yeah, it's on the schemes, all that kind of stuff, So it's a collective, and I think we need to remember that. But no, I've said this every week, no one should be exempt from criticism. And criticism doesn't mean to say you're shit. Criticism just can be constructive in the sense that, well, this has happened, but maybe, questioning things. There's nothing wrong with questioning things and questioning people and questioning decisions. That should be happening all the time. So, yeah, it'll be great to get that going. And hopefully, they've had this bye week. They've had a lot of time to think about what they're going to be doing against the Commanders next Monday. And I know as Bears fans, we've been burned by that because in the past we've had too much time to think about folk after the bye week, and then we come out of the bye week and we've overthought it and we've just gone to shit. So hopefully, again, this is another example of how the Bears can come out the bye and do it this time and make the right decisions. Go back to what Braggs was saying there about, being the coach that goes, you know what, I'm going to take my starting left tackle out. I'm going to stick my right tackle over on the left-hand side, and then I'm going to put a new guy in on the right. Like, he's evidently willing to make changes and willing to do things rather than just sticking to what he wants to do. We talk about Matt Nagy going back to, I'm not here to run the I formation, like all that kind of stuff. Like, I think Ben Johnson is willing to create his offense and what he wants to do in each game on the strengths of the players. And also we've seen certainly in the second half of the game last week as well, that if he goes in at half time, he can make adjustments as well. So I'm hoping if he's got this whole week and a bit now since the last game until the next game, that, there's a lot of time in there to make adjustments. And I think that's going to get better, or I hope it gets better.
Yeah, I think if we move on because we've got 5-6 minutes left. We're moving on to the actual Washington game itself and what we're expecting. And people talk about last year and the whole like Hail Mary scenario. I think for me, it's a brand new team. It's a completely different organization already. We've seen Ben Johnson stamp on this team, on this franchise. The other coaches that are around, Dennis Allen's improvement from week 2 to now. The defense looks like it's purring a little bit. Well, maybe a little bit in trouble on the run game, but there's a lot of positives there with players who, like, for example, we named them already, Stevenson, Sewell, players that people almost wanted out the door, Byard, and people are questioning Brisker. We should get Kyler Gordon back. We should get TJ Edwards back. We should get Grady Jarrett back. those are big returns for us. And I think from that perspective, and then he's made the call on Theo Benedette going in at left tackle. Excuse me. So you've got all those different positive stuff going into this game. And the feeling amongst the camp, you saw it even in today, they were doing a photo shoot, and it just seems to be a happy camp. There's real positivity going in there. I can't wait to see Kyler Gordon back on the football field in a Bears uniform and see number 6 flying around and making plays. And what's your optimism going into this Washington game? Because for me, it's not an all-time high, but I said it earlier, it's a free shot for me.
Yeah, I don't see it as a free shot at all. I think it's a game we need to win, really, to keep the momentum going. For me, every game is a must-win, right? So I need to caveat that before I continue. But for me, like, I think they need to go in there and make a statement. You know, you look at that game last season, the Washington game, and that was the turning point in the season. When that happened, it all went to shit from there. It all went downhill from there. So for me, you have to use this. And if I'm Ben Johnson or I'm any of those coaches, I'm playing that game from last season in the locker room or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm reminding people about that. You know, not that they should need any more motivation to come out there and win, but at the end of the day, sometimes that kind of stuff works. So for me, going into this game, where's my optimism at? It's okay. Like, it's not bad. Like, and the thing is, like, because it's so early in the year, I don't know what we're going to get. When you look at the first half of the Raiders game, and to be fair, we did get blown out by Max Crosby just being excellent. Otherwise, the first half could have looked a wee bit different. But saying that, there were still a lot of errors. There was a lot of still poor execution. So I think it just really depends on how you sort of start that game, because it's not the Raiders we're playing this week. It is the Commanders. It's a better football team. So I think they've got to come out the traps. You know, the scripted play that they'll inevitably do at the start of the game. You want that to. If I win the coin toss, I'm asking for the ball, and I'm going down the field and I'm trying to score right away. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think you have to try and put your foot down on the game right from the start, and really then, if the Bears do that, then you look at the way the defense is playing and you're like, yeah, we could get takeaways. You know, we could get interceptions, we could get forced fumbles. It could absolutely happen again. And I think that's the way that they'll be looking at it. So it really depends on what Bears team turns up next week or on Monday. If it's the team that started the first half last week, I'm worried. But if it's a team that came out in the second half, showed those adjustments, showed those improvements, then that team can be beat. You know, the Commanders are fine. You know, they're a fine team. They're not 5-0. Do you know what I mean? Like, I watched the game on Sunday, and for a lot of that first half, they looked okay. Obviously, Jaden Daniels is going to do some wonderful things. There's no doubt about that. They've got players on that team that can do some wonderful things. But we've got players as well. And I think as Bears fans, we worry that much about other players and what they're going to come in and do. We need to remember we've got guys that, you know, we're taking high, have, you know, got a pedigree there, have got a skill set. And it's all about just trying to utilize that skill set. And I say it again, the coaching is so important in this, because this time around, the adults of the room, the accountability is in the room, and these guys are creating situations that are working to the strengths of who we have, rather than just trying to fit round pegs and square holes.
We also need big games from big key players. Montez Sweat's going back to Washington. He needs to have a big game. Caleb's from Washington, so he'll have his own education. Obviously, everyone knows about Stevenson. We've seen loads of it in the chat around Stevenson interception. I don't want them to go after that, if I'm honest. If it comes to you, take it. But I don't want them to trying to make plays out of nowhere. As you said, Washington's a good team, but they're 3-2. They're not, as you said, they're not 5-0. I think we've got a chance to go in there and win this game myself. You hit the nail on the head. We've got weapons. Colson Loveland should be back. Another weapon that we should be hopefully seeing more of from a first round draft pick. We want to see more of. We want more to see on the ball. I think you will. I think you'll see players like I said, Luther Burden get on the ball. Like DJ Moore had an amazing day a couple of years ago in Washington, so he seems to enjoy that stadium. And obviously Rome is on touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. So this is a big opportunity for our offensive team. And Theo Benedet's second start. Most likely then you'll have Darnell right back as well, so that'll also solidify the right hand side. Ozzy Trebillo would probably be your swing tackle, and Braxton won't be even suiting up, I would guess. I just think there's so many. We're getting players back. We have the bye week. There's so much opportunity for us here. That's the reason why I went as in a free shot, because we get that opportunity to really have a good pop at this. I'm with you. We win the toss, we get the ball. That's how I want it. I want us to go down the field, go 7-up, and then let's keep the momentum going and get the optimism going, because the Washington Stadium isn't exactly a heartbed. It's not exactly like it's not a raucous stadium compared to other stadiums that are there. We're not going into San Francisco. We're not going Steelers. We're not going Packers. We can have an opportunity to really kill the crowd and make it feel that way. So I'm optimistic heading into the game. I think you'll find that level of how important that blocked field goal is going to show at the end of the year. I think it's a difference between us winning 6 games and us winning 9 and 10. Honestly, I think that's how important it is. And I think we might surprise people on Monday Night Football. I think Kev's going to love it. I think Ben Johnson's going to love it. I think the last game that we had that it's just the last opportunity. The last 2 road games we've had was Raiders with positivity and the Bears fans in the stadium and everything going cool. And then you had the nightmare of Ben going back to the Lions. So this could be 3 wins in a row. And I actually think we will. I think we'll actually go and do it. I actually think, in a strange way, and I don't know why, I think we'll do it in style. I think we'll win quite well. I don't think it's going to be close.
I think that Lions game, in the long run, I think that Lions game is going to be beneficial for the team.
Yep.
You know, what a steep learning curve that was, and a terrible loss. But what an opportunity to bounce back. And long term, as I say, that's going to be key. And are we done today? Have we anything else we want to talk about? I know we're maybe going to try and come back on and do something before the game on Monday to maybe kind of get like predictions and stuff like that. So we'll maybe do that on Sunday or Monday next week. Before we'll have a show next week, won't we? Back on Monday anyway.
We'll have Monday before that, so we predict the game then. But no, I'm gonna. First of all, great to have Braggs on. I'm gonna have a shout out. My girlfriend got herself a job today, so I'm so unbelievably proud of her. So she's working away, so I'm dead proud of her. So that's kind of cool for her. And obviously, Chip, after everyone's asking questions about him 3 weeks ago when he got his balls snipped, he's doing quite well as well. So he's delighted he was eating food, running around there. So there's my Chip update for the week. I think I might introduce Chip next week and bring him in so people can see him. He's a little fluffy Jack Russell. So he's.
I was going to say, you should clarify for the people who have maybe not watched before that it's a dog that you're talking about.
Correct. It is a small little Jack Russell fluffy dog, superstar. Literally, like it's not even my dog; it's girlfriend's dog. So I'm by association. I'm done that way. So he's a little legend. So I'm dead proud of him. I'm dead proud of herself. So she should be. Yeah, I said I'd give her a shout out. So, what about you? Do you have any shout outs? Do you have any shout outs or any comments you want to make or anything strange you want to add before we go?
No, nothing really in particular. To be honest, no shout outs, man. Nothing's happened in the last few days, I suppose, that sort of shout out worthy. My 10-year-old son did really well in a cross country competition actually. Yes, so he's qualified to get to whatever the next thing is. So good for him. And
good for him.
Other than that, it's been a relatively quiet week in the old Daily household, which is quite nice. Although I'm going to be off. I'm off work for a couple of days this week. I'm off work for a couple of days next week as well because it's the school holidays. So I'll hopefully just get some downtime. But other than that, man, that's about us. But listen, everybody, thank you very much for joining us today on the show. It was great to have Braggs on to.
Don't forget to follow the show. Don't forget to follow the show, like it on Twitter, get us involved, tell your friends.
What Ant said, follow the show, like us, subscribe, all that jazz. We'll be back on Monday for definite with another show. We may be then before Monday, we'll wait and see what happens. But the best thing to do is to follow us, and that way you can find it. But until next week, Ant, cheers. Have a good week, everyone else. Bear down and look after yourselves. Cheers.
Bear down, Blair.